All right, beautiful moms. This is Dr. Beata. Welcome, welcome. Today we are talking about a controversial topic, as I found, as I posted the question in the group and on my profile. There were some really interesting opinions about this. So we are talking about the topic of, can a baby be bad? And we are going to go in depth on multiple different areas of this and also connect this back to holistic health and healing as well. So if you are watching live, go ahead and do hashtag live. Where you're watching from. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and do hashtag replay. And as we are going through this training, this is meant to be interactive. So I will be asking you questions, and I encourage you to post in the comments, post what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And I want you to know that this is a no judgment zone. There is no judgment, no shaming allowed. And what I want to encourage is just this open conversation where we can start to understand each other and get this feeling of compassion and understanding for each other's positions. And the reason being is that we are all in different places on our journey. We may be in a different place on our motherhood journey, on our healing journey, whatnot. So as we go through, I encourage you to participate, share your thoughts, share your feelings. And I do also want to let you know that this may be a trigger for some of you. And if that is, absolutely do what you need to. I hear you. This can be a triggering topic. And I recommend, if it is, watching in small bites or reaching out to someone to talk about it. So that is something I offer as well that we'll touch on later. And I think this topic is really, really important. So thank you for those who can join me. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to pull up my presentation here. Because this topic, I feel, does require a presentation. So again, welcome. And we are going in depth today on, can a baby be bad? And again, my name is Dr. Beata, founder of the Mindful Moms Circle. And something I strongly believe in is a holistic approach. So myself, I am a holistic and integrative doctor of physical therapy, and I believe in healing the mind, body, and soul, and that we have to look at health from all perspectives in order to get the best outcomes. So as we're even talking about this topic, we are going to be approaching it from a holistic perspective. So currently I mainly work with moms and little ones. So moms experiencing motherhood challenges, whether it be mental health, whether it be sleep, whether it is a little one who isn't feeling well, especially your little ones that have colic, eczema, reflux, allergies, intolerances. This is what I specialize in. So this is the holistic approach that I'm going to be bringing to this presentation as well, and some options of ways that you can get additional resources if anything piques your interest or curiosity. So I want to start just with a general question of what is bad? And this is a loaded question, right? This is a loaded question. So we're going to break it down a little bit. I want you to think of what comes to mind when you think of bad. And we're going to be talking specifically about babies today. So I had asked this question in the group and on my personal profile, and I had gotten so many responses. And if you haven't already, feel free to add your responses to the post. I'll drop the link later. And we want to just take a moment to think of what is bad. And some things that I have seen come up in the posts were things like baby not sleeping well, baby or toddler. We're going to encompass that later, but a child doing something that they're not supposed to do. Babies that may be fussy, babies that may cry a lot, babies that don't ever want to be alone, that want to be with someone. So again, I'd love to hear your perspective. What comes to mind for you when you think of bad and pertaining to a baby? And it's okay if you don't think that babies are bad, but what can you start to, with some empathy, with some understanding, think of what may others be thinking with this? All right. So that's my first question to you, and go ahead and put it in the comments. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and put that in the comments as well. Like and subscribe. Definitely, we're going to be covering more topics like this. So, right, I have you thinking of what is bad. Now, I want you to start thinking of what is good as it pertains to a baby. So, what are some things that you think people may think that a baby is good with? Maybe a quote unquote, I'm going to use good baby is one that doesn't cry. Maybe a quote unquote good baby is one that that plays alone by themselves. Maybe a good baby sleeps through the night. Maybe a good baby is easygoing, can be flexible with their maybe schedule or their routines. So again, I'd love to hear from you. What comes up for you when you think of good in relation to baby? And again, there's no judgment, no shaming here. We're just creating an open discussion, an area where we can share and start to get different perspectives and an understanding. And the other thing is there's no right or wrongs. There's no right or wrongs as well. So those are some of the things that came up in the comments as far as good, right? And so how many of you have heard a person asking, oh, are they a good baby? I know when my daughter was little, I got asked that quite a bit with my daughter. Oh, is she a good baby? She's so cute. Is she a good baby? And that was something that stuck in my mind for a while and something that I was curious about. And again, curiosity is something I like to follow. I like to dig a little deeper into that if something piques your curiosity. So now we are going to go on to the next slide here, right? And we're just going to talk about some babies. So some babies may cry a lot. Some babies may not want to be alone. Some babies won't sleep. Some babies wake up often. Some babies don't sleep through the night ever. My daughter didn't until she was about 3 years old. Some babies always want to be entertained, right? So again, what comes up for you when you think of a good, I'm going to do quote unquote, good baby versus bad baby, right? So these are some babies, and this is just the reality that some babies do cry more. And I want to know, have you experienced this? Does your baby cry a lot? Does your baby not want to be alone, like ever? Are they a Velcro baby where they are worn all the time and want to be held all the time? How is your little one sleeping? Are they waking often, or do they sleep well? So again, just some things to get your gears moving. And there is this group of babies who are like this. They cry a lot. They don't want to be alone. They won't sleep. They wake up often. And I will say it very openly. This is the description of my daughter, Claudina. She's over 4 now. So there is a change, right, from baby to toddler. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that later. Now, what I want you to know is that babies have certain needs. Babies have survival needs, survival instinct needs. And babies can only communicate it in a certain way. So babies can communicate it by crying, by fussing, by the limited movement that they do have depending on the age and development level. So what I want you to now put all of that perspective into is that really this is baby communicating, and they may be having a hard time. So that may be why they're crying often. That may be why they're really fussy often. That may be why they're waking up often. And I want you to think of it in the terms of baby has certain needs and they want their needs to be met. So what they're doing is they're communicating in the ways that they know, in the ways that they're able to, what their needs are. And it's up to us as the caregivers, as the parents, as the moms, to figure out what do they need. Now, this perspective is, again, maybe triggering for some of you, and that is okay. I'm holding an open space for you because I know personally people where this is very triggering for them. And what this is past wounds really showing up. So I will give an example of myself. When my daughter cries, I have a physiological response in my body. And what that means is that my heart starts to race. I sometimes can get a little clammy, like sweaty. My mind starts to race as well. And my anxiety starts increasing just from the sound of my daughter crying. And what's interesting is I have learned that this is not when other babies cry. This is, for me, it is specifically when my daughter cries. Now, some of you, and I know another person that I'm thinking of personally, they have a response when any baby cries. And again, that is okay. I want to create this space, this open space where we can be curious about this and start to maybe ask some questions. So if there are any questions that come up for you, please put them in the comments. And I'm curious, have you ever thought of it this way? And have you ever experienced what I'm describing? This body response to a cry or a baby communicating or whatnot. And if you have ever kind of dug deeper into that, if you were ever curious about that. So the next part, sorry, I'm switching over to the presentation here, is I want to present a holistic perspective. And this is something that I work through with clients very closely. And root causes and something called a root cause analysis. So when we look at baby communicating their needs, there is a root cause behind that. Okay, so if baby is crying or baby is fussy, we can stop and be curious and ask ourselves, what is the root cause behind that? If, maybe baby is hungry and they want to be fed. Maybe they are scared. Maybe one of their needs is safety and comfort. And then when we also look at root causes, there are categories of normal, abnormal, and somewhere in between. There's gray area with everything. So when we think of root causes, right, there may be multiple. There may be, when I'm looking from a holistic perspective, holistic health perspective, they may be digestion related. Maybe it's pain related, right? So digestion may be gas. It may be, diarrhea or constipation. When we are looking at pain related, right? Maybe the digestive system is painful. Maybe their toe is scrunched in their sock and that may be painful for them. Maybe, something pinched and that's painful for them. Maybe they are emotionally needing some support. Maybe they feel lonely, right? So I think of my daughter not wanting to play alone. She liked the presence of others. Then we look at temperament, right? We all have a different personality. So some babies just like to be more social. They like to be around others. Some babies are okay being alone. So there are multiple root causes. And when we start looking at this, we can start to appreciate a little bit of compassion and empathy for our little ones, saying that, okay, there's a cause behind this. And other causes that sometimes we don't think about, right? We do think about emotional, but what about energetics? What are the energetics in the household? What are the energetics around the relationship? Whether that's caregiver, whether that's other siblings, whether it's, other caretakers. There are so many possible root causes. So if this is something that you are interested in, this is what I go in depth with my clients. I offer a low-cost guidance call so we can get to know each other. And then if you'd like, we can go in depth and work through this root cause analysis where we identify the problem, we start understanding the problem, and then we identify root causes, we address them, and then we monitor and we make adjustments and improvements, right? We adjust things. We'll keep working through that until we get a resolution of symptoms. And if you are interested in root causes, there is a video that I did on that, and I will put it in the links below, or you can comment root cause and I can tag you in it as well. And that goes into the kind of understanding a little bit more of these root causes and how they can affect health. So I can definitely tag you in that. Now, I want you to go back to thinking of this good and bad. And from my perspective, what I see that as is very black and white thinking, where it's either one or the other. There's no in between. And let me know if you have ever thought of this, but what I have discovered is that there is a whole lot of gray area. Something that may be perceived as bad in one situation may not be perceived as bad in another. So we're going to touch on that a little bit as well. And also, right, when we look at this gray area, we start to think about things differently. We start to try to get understanding. We try to put ourselves in those child's or baby's or person's shoes. And from that, with that sense of compassion, with that empathy, with that understanding, sometimes we don't see the thing that's labeled as bad anymore as bad, and what's good as good anymore. So just a couple thoughts to get you thinking. And what I also want to mention on that topic is that society and culture often play a big role in these good and bad situations. So one of the follow-up questions I asked on my personal profile was, if most people don't think that a baby can be bad, why do people often ask, oh, are they a good baby? So what I see it as is this societal, that's the word I was looking for, and cultural impact, where we are asking these things, not really realizing what we're asking. What are we thinking? So now I want you to take the perspective of that a baby or child only knows what they are taught and what they are told. And research shows from psychology that we create our identity in the sense of understanding of ourselves in these first beginning years of our life. And what happens is that we take on the identity that we are told often. So again, there is nothing wrong if you have been doing this again. I just want to mention this again. There's no judgment, no shaming. I'm just bringing some light to this topic. So maybe you have been telling your children, you're a bad girl, you're a bad baby when you do that, or you're a bad boy or whatnot. What happens is that this child hears, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. And they tend to, with time, start to label themselves as bad. Now, I'm going to give you a very personal example from myself. So my parents did label me, or I labeled myself from what my parents told me, that I was a bad girl from childhood. Now, there are different things that a person can do with this, a child can do with this. And I want you to know that it has had a lifelong impact on me. Now, there is no judgment or shaming of my parents, because we can only do what we know. So they didn't think anything else. That is what culture and society was doing around them. So they just did what everyone else was doing, and that's okay. Now, from a personal perspective, I labeled myself as a bad girl growing up into childhood, and in the back of my head into adulthood. So now, what can happen when someone labels themselves as bad? So I'd love to hear your comments, what your thoughts are as well. The comment section is a little quiet right now, and I understand that this topic can be a little heavy. So I definitely understand that you may need some time to process and think about things, and that's absolutely okay. Come back and comment. If you have questions, come back. I'll answer them later. So again, I'm going to give a personal example. So myself, and each person and personality type, each temperament can do different things with this. So myself, labeling myself as a bad girl, I went over and above to try and prove that I was a good girl. Because one of our basic needs as people, as children, as babies even, is to know that we are good deep down inside. So myself, I went over and above to try and prove my goodness. And what that plays out as into adulthood is something called people pleasing. And what this does, essentially what this means, if you're not familiar with that term, is that I took others' needs and wants into consideration, and not just into consideration, but I made that more important than my own needs and wants. And that's something that was instilled in me from babyhood and childhood. So now having that perspective, can you see how that can change a person's life going forward? How that can change how a person shows up in life in various aspects, in relationships, in work and career, in school, in friendships. How about in their health and in themselves? So we're going to, again, go a little deeper into this. And I'm just going to give a flip example. And again, there's so much gray area in this. I'm just going to give the two kind of ends of the spectrum so that you can see how this can work. So what another person, another personality type, another temperament, another just soul can do is another child may internalize this, I'm a bad girl. And they may just acknowledge that and say, yeah, I am a bad girl. And so now what I'm going to do is I am going to prove to everyone that I am a bad girl. I'm going to uphold that name. And can you see how now that perspective may change the outcomes of that person's life with their behaviors, with their relationships, with how they show up for friendships, for school, for work, for their health? So again, those are kind of the two ends of the spectrum, and there's a whole lot of gray area in between. So I'm not saying by any means that those are the only two choices. And I just want to give a little bit of understanding of how important they're called the formative years are. Because what babies, what children are told, what they hear becomes part of their identity. So that is a big message here. And again, how does culturally and society respond when someone is labeled bad or good? Just some thoughts, some things to think of, and some things that I go in depth with the moms and clients that I work with. So how does this relate to health and healing, right? This is a holistic health, channel here. And how does this relate to health and healing? So I am here to tell you that this has everything to do with health and healing. Part of my healing journey was acknowledging this side of me, this part of me that still thought I was a bad girl. Now, the thing I didn't mention, right? Sometimes we can perceive ourselves, and I'm going to talk to the moms directly here, as bad moms. And I want you to know that that may be coming from a deep little part of you from way long ago that you may not even know is there. And one thing that I strongly believe in, is that there is good and light and love in everyone. In everyone. Every soul that comes to this earth has some light and love in them. And what happens is environment plays a part in it, and also these other factors, these root causes, these energetics can play a part in how that is expressed, how behavior shows up. So we can get really deep on this topic, and I'm not going to go that deep right now. However, what I want you to know, if you ever get that moment pop up where you think, I'm a bad mom, what I want you to know is that that is not your voice. I'm going to let that sink in for a moment. That is not your voice. That is not you. And this was something huge on my healing journey when I realized that that is not me. That is something that I picked up from someone. Someone in the past told me I was bad, and I internalized that. And now when I make a mistake, when I screw something up, when I have a life experience, maybe I label myself as bad. because that is the perspective that I was taught in. That's the paradigm that I was brought up in. And I hope this touches some of your hearts, because when we start realizing that, man, it was absolutely freeing for me. It was absolutely freeing, because what I can do at that point is say, no, I'm not a bad mom. I'm having a hard time. Just like those babies, right? We talked about a baby may be crying and fussing and doing this or that. They may be experiencing a hard time. They're not bad. That's my perspective. And there are some outliers to this. Very, very, very few, very, very rare occasions. And even those rare occasions, I believe there's an underlying factor there. So that is also to mention that there is bad in this world. The dark is real, unfortunately. And it's the ability to discern, come towards situations with understanding, and to be able to discern the what am I looking for? The shades of that black, gray, white. All right. I hope that's making sense. If that's not, comment, let me know. I may do another video to go deeper into that. So now let's go back to this slide. How does this relate to health and healing? So myself, I'm just going to use myself as an example, right? When I was focused on being a people pleaser, right? So I was taking others' needs and wants into consideration before my own and above my own. I would make choices. I made choices that were not conducive to my health or my healing. I went along with things. I followed things. I took part in things. I participated in things that were not for my highest and greatest good, because I was not prioritizing myself. And when we are not prioritizing ourselves, our health can suffer. It can suffer in multiple ways. It can suffer in mental and emotional health. And what's really cool and what I love working through is the physical connection. The physical connection. So there are certain things that can present as a physical ailment that are actually connected to these emotional, mental, energetic things that we are feeling, that we're thinking, that we're experiencing. And that is a crucial piece of the health and healing journey. So I'm going to give this example of someone that, let's go with this example. Someone that is working out a ton, eating, a really specific diet, and their stress levels are super high because they are helping everyone around them. They are, quote unquote, prioritizing their health by exercising and nutrition, which is awesome step. And their stress levels are super high. Their anxiety may be super high because they're doing everything for everyone. And they end up not having time really for their needs and wants beyond kind of the superficial nutrition and exercise. What else is the soul saying? And so that creates an imbalance in the body. The body is getting conflicting messages. And that, with time, may lead to a health condition. Or someone who, again, is super healthy, exercises, eats well, and is in a job that drains their soul. So they are getting stressors. They are not looking forward to every day at work. They are dreading every day of work. The messages that they are telling their brain and body are not conducive to health and healing. Same thing goes for us as moms. When we choose everyone before ourselves, when we do everything for our kids and we end up not doing much for ourselves, we don't listen to our soul and what it needs and wants, that can have a negative effect on our health as well. And especially if you're in the healing process, that can halt healing, that can slow it down. So I just wanted to bring some awareness to this topic, to this area that's not talked about often. So now I want to bring to light, what are some words that we can use instead? Instead of asking, oh, is she a good baby? What can we say? Instead of saying, you're a bad baby, you're a bad girl, you're a bad boy, what can we say? I just want you to think of some things. What comes to mind for you? So one thing that just automatically pops into my head, and when I hear people saying now, oh, are they a good baby? My ultimate response is that all babies are good. And sometimes I'll say, so now looking back 4 years from when my daughter was born, now thinking of when someone asked me in those 4 years ago, oh, is she a good baby? And I always felt really weird. Like, what do I answer to that? She's crying nonstop. She hates sleep. She has a whole bunch of medical issues. It puts you as a mom in a really weird position. So something that I can replace that with is, yes, she's a good baby. And she's going through a hard time with some medical issues right now. Or she's just going through a hard time. And can you see how that brings a little different level of understanding to the conversation and to the situation? Now, instead of saying bad, right, I have a list of words. And again, I'd love to hear your comments as well. So words that are often used to describe babies who are having a hard time, who may be fussy, who may be colicky, who may be crying a lot, who may hate sleep. We say spirited. So a baby may be calm, or they may be spirited. They may be energetic. They may be high needs. They may be sensitive. So especially our sensory kiddos. My daughter has some sensory things going on as well. So sometimes when she, the picture that pops into my head first is with loud noises. Sometimes she wants to be removed from a situation because it's too loud for her, or it's too stimulating for her. So I say, she's sensitive. We need to leave. We need to go or whatnot. Persistent. I love this one. A negotiator. Strong-willed. Now, especially as we get down, I shouldn't even say that. The whole list. Can you see how some of these words are actually positive? So I'm going to use my daughter, for example. When she's older, when she's a teen and an adult, do I want her to be persistent? Do I want her to be a good negotiator? Do I want her to be strong-willed? Absolutely. I see those as really positive traits. So when she's going out for her first job, or when she is, negotiating a grade in school or whatnot, she's going to have these positive traits to help support her and that are going to shape her personality. One thing that I want her to know, I may cry, I'm hoping I don't, in the bottom of her heart, is that I acknowledge these traits in her, and I want her to display them. I don't want her to hide them. I want her to show them with pride and know that that is her. That is her personality. That is Claudina. I'm going to cry. And that these traits that make up her personality are all beautiful. And that they will play a huge role in her success in her future. So this is a different understanding that when our babies are having a hard time, when they're crying a lot, when they're fussy, it can be really hard at times as a mom, as a parent, as a caregiver. It can be really hard. And by doing our best with what we know in the given moment, when we allow them to express themselves, when we allow them to communicate their needs, when we don't label them, when we just accept them for who they are, they feel safe and secure in the caregiver attachment and relationship. Now, this comes from attachment theory, which is something I talk about often. And one of the most important things we can do as parents is create a secure and safe attachment with our children. And it starts from day one. It starts from infancy. And it's okay if we make mistakes. It's okay if we don't get information until later, because I didn't either. It's all a learning journey that we're on. So my intention is to bring as much awareness to this as possible and to awaken this curiosity in you. Awaken this interest, pique your interest in, I've never thought of something that way. Or maybe you have, and you want to go deeper. So I am here for questions. The comment section has been quiet this time, and that's okay as you take this in. Again, this may be a triggering and a heavy topic, so I absolutely understand that. If you do have questions, please post them in the comments, and I will come back to them. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and post your questions and comments as well. I will personally go through and look at those. And if this is something that you are interested in, that again piques your curiosity or interest, I encourage you to join the Mindful Mom Circle. We have a free community that's a supportive community. There's lots of resources there for those of you who think there is some kind of root cause going on, and so who want to dig deeper. For those who are really committed to identifying and addressing things and working closely together, I do offer a low-cost guidance call, and then we can talk about various ways that we can work together and how I can support you best. And actually, one thing that came to mind that I didn't talk about yet is that another way, let me actually jump back to that slide. Right, so what are words that we can use instead? And I forgot to mention this. So we talked about how some of these traits that sometimes can be perceived as bad can actually be perceived as good, vice versa. And it just depends on the situation, right? So one thing that popped into my head is that we can start addressing things as a behavior. So maybe what we are seeing is a behavior that may be labeled or perceived as bad. Again, depends on the situation. And when we say the behavior, and I actually don't even like to say, personally, I don't like to say that the behavior is bad. What I like to say is that I don't like that behavior, or that behavior isn't appropriate right now. Or so I'm going to think of my toddler hitting me. I say that is, I'm not going to tolerate you hitting me. So these are some other words that I can give you as parents, as moms, as caregivers, of how we can use that differently. Okay, because when we address the behavior, we're not labeling the person, the child. And at the same time, what I go deeper with is trying to understand the need behind that behavior, right? So maybe a child doesn't want to be alone and they're crying, and maybe they do hit, right? So when we start looking, what is the behavior? The behavior is hitting. That's we are not tolerating that. We're not accepting that. And what's the need behind that? Are they looking for some attention? Are they feeling lonely? Are they feeling unheard and they're trying to, again, get attention? Are they feeling pain and they're trying to get some help for that? So that's another kind of mindset shift there. And actually, let me check because I did make some notes. Make sure that I didn't miss anything. Oh, I did. Okay, one more thing. Sorry. So one thing I really want to put as much as I can in here. So sometimes I saw this comment a couple times when a toddler or older child is doing something that they're not supposed to do, right? They know they're not supposed to do it and they do it anyway. So we can look at it in the same perspective. It's a behavior, The child themselves isn't bad, maybe, overall speaking, children are good. The behavior is not appropriate, not tolerated, not wanted. What's the need behind that? Are they testing limits? So that's also what I want to mention, is that sometimes it's totally normal for a toddler, especially, to test limits, because they are learning. They are learning what are the rules? What are the rules in my surrounding? What are the rules in my my environment? So by testing these limits, they get an idea. They learn. So that's the other thing I wanted to really address, because I think that's really important, that sometimes these behaviors that we see, before we label them, let's think of what the need is. Are they learning something? Are they testing limits? And this is an unpopular opinion, but I want you to know that it is absolutely normal and crucial for toddlers to test the limits, because that is how they learn the rules. That is how they learn the environment around them. So I hope that was a cool mindset shift for you as well. And I did want to mention this as well. For those of you who are struggling with sleep, I have a sleep workshop that I give away for free with my guidance call. So if you are interested in that, put sleep in the comments and I will get you the link. And what I want you to know is that this sleep workshop is a very holistic approach. You will have actionable steps to take. You will have strategies. You will be empowered. Your mindset, again, will shift, just like the little mini mindset shifts we did here. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. And if you aren't ready for the full workshop, I give you day one absolutely for free. So I will leave that link in the comments so you can check it out in your leisure, especially if you're up at night and you can't sleep. Go ahead, watch the first part of the workshop, step one of the workshop. So again, I am here for any questions, and I will put all those links in the comments. And I hope this was, in a sense, just opened your mind to some different opportunities, some different possibilities, some different ways of thinking about things. And I look forward to hearing your comments and questions, and kind of, again, holding more of these open discussions, because things, again, from what I've found, black and white doesn't exist. It's mainly gray. So when we can start approaching the topics from a sense of understanding and empathy and compassion, I believe we can transform our lives and change the world. So as always, I wish you and your little ones all the best, and I hope to see you soon.